Once you have bundled several rows together with a group by clause in a query, you can perform aggregate calculations against all of the rows that are in each group. Aggregate functions are most commonly used in select statements of a query to create additional columns that will appear in the results. To use them, you write the name of the function and inside the parentheses, the data column that you want to process. You will almost always want to add an alias with the as keyword so that the results will clearly identify what the values represent. So what are the aggregate functions that are available in SQL Server? The most common is count. Count will return the number of items in a group, and since it doesn't matter what column you count, you can use the asterisk character inside of the parentheses. By default, count will count everything, even duplicate values or null values. If you want to remove those from total, you can use the distinct keyword and the column name that you want to evaluate, and it will return the count of unique non-null values instead. The count function returns an integer, but if you need to count something that might exceed 2 billion items, use count big instead. The second most common aggregate function is sum. Sum will add up the total value of numeric columns in a group. Because you need to identify which column you want to count, you can't use the asterisk like you can with count. You need to specify the column name in parentheses. Sum will add up all of the values, ignoring nulls by default, but you could add the distinct keyword if you'd like to sum just the unique values. The average function will calculate the average value for all of the items in a group. Min and max do not calculate anything, but they do identify the lowest and highest numerical value found in the column. Interestingly, both of these also work with text data and will return first and last alphabetical value according to the correlation settings of the database. There are also aggregate functions for statistical calculations of standard deviation, variance, and variance for a population. Finally, there is a new class of aggregate function that is being introduced with SQL Server 2019 that will find approximate values. The first aggregate function that falls in this category is approximate count distinct. This function is targeted for use in big applications where you need to get a rough idea of the size of a dataset and more concerned about getting an answer very quickly that's close enough to be actionable, rather than spending all day to get the exact count. I would expect support for additional approximate aggregate functions will roll out periodically with future versions of SQL Server.